Good morning, good evening, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights. Welcome to Daily AI News Review, where we rate articles essential, important, and optional, saving you time in your busy day. You can follow along in gaiinsights.com/articles, and please tell us what you think as we're discussing these topics in comments and respond to comments and like us on YouTube and LinkedIn and other platforms if you're watching from there. Okay, let's start. Oh, today I have John, Adam, Ankash, and Paul with me. And let's start with the first article, please, Ankash.
Sure, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from 11 Labs, and they have introduced 11v3 Ultra, which they are suggesting is the most expressive text-to-speech model.
Yes, this is a very expressive model. I played with it a little bit this morning. John, what did you think about this announcement?
Yeah, it really is impressive in the way you can simply, give it text instructions. Everything from laughter to interaction to, it's just it's again everyday miracles. Now, to me, this is I would have this be optional, except for the fact that I think the voice interface is so critical. I think that is a true because we've got as I've said before, it's not voice, it's conversation. And this really is conversation quality interaction, which I think is categorically different than simply, giving voice commands. When we get into dialogue, it's a very different thing. So for me, it's important, maybe essential, but I was going to give it an important.
Okay, important from John. What did you think, Adam?
I was important as well for the reasons John said. The whole voice evolution and 11 Labs is really at the core of it. Any organization out there that isn't already paying attention to 11 Labs or starting to ideate internally about ways they could leverage this. It says if you're working on videos, audiobooks, or media tools, it unlocks a new level of expressiveness. That's absolutely right. I play with it a little. I use 11 Labs all the time, so I'm a huge fan of theirs. And there's still the fact that you might, even with the audio tags, if you say excited or whispers, you might have to do 4, 6, 8 generations to get something that's what you want. It's not like you can just sort of let this thing rip and it's going to go in and narrate everything right out of the box. So it feels more like an incremental change. It's more expressive, but it's really a step change, in my opinion, in terms of the capabilities getting more realistic. So important.
Important. Okay, Paul, what did you think? Important? We're going important here.
Yeah, I support important. I do think 11 Labs is pushing the envelope, and I agree. I think we're seeing a recurring theme called people like OpenAI and 11 Labs, clear leaders in the category. AI leaders need to be, at least importantly, aware of the key changes. So important.
Yeah. Ankash, important, right? Even though it is a product announcement, some of these capabilities are not out there. They're just announcing them. What did you think?
Important, Luda, especially what John mentioned. So, yeah.
Okay, going important. Important it is. Let's proceed, Ankash, to the next article.
Okay, the next one that we have for today comes from Apple, a much discussed paper on Twitter right now, titled The Illusion of Thinking.
Yes, an interesting piece of research from Apple talking about how LLMs actually not quite reason well for medium-sized complexities. They drop off the performance. What did you think about this, Adam?
It was certainly interesting, and for me, it just kind of makes sense that they don't quite have the capabilities yet. That as things get to a certain level of complexity, they just fall apart in terms of their ability to keep it together. I think someone could probably make an argument for why it's important to understand that they're like the place where you should use these reasoning models. That there are scenarios where using a non-reasoning model like a GPT-4o is actually preferable depending on the complexity, but this in some ways just complicates things more than helps clarify in terms of beyond that nuance of when to use a reasoning model versus another one. Perhaps a cautionary tale about not giving it tasks too complex, but I think we still all know that even these reasoning models have limitations to what they're going to be able to solve. So I didn't take much away from it that would really be useful for the leader. It was optional for me.
Yeah, it begs the question whether it's real reasoning or pattern recognition that many people have in the back of their minds. It's a massive pattern recognition versus the real reasoning. And this one kind of brings this out in the open. What do you think about this, John? You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, I was going to give it an option as well. It's a really interesting philosophical question, I think, to make a distinction between reasoning and pattern recognition, because I could make the argument that Darwin's mostly pattern recognition, and that's a pretty profound theory, Anyway, I think, yeah, I do think that there are certain kinds of reasoning, especially multi-level reasoning, and when you shift contexts and shift, which the way I think about, things like the Hanoi Tower problem and so forth. I don't, this is where the symbolic AI, the kind of stuff that, we taught and I studied back in the 80s, I think it's going to make another comeback, that we're going to see hybrid models. It'll be a combination of neural AI and what they call compound systems, I guess. Yeah, I mean, there's anyway, I don't think it's that big a deal for the AI leader. This notion of them breaking down in these domains, I don't find surprising. And I think a lot of the epistemological conversation to me, is very kind of naive.
Okay, going optional, even though it's an interesting find.
Yeah.
What did you think about this, Paul?
Very optional. Our AI leader is time starved. They got to get stuff done. This is the nuances of how the intelligence motor is working. So optional.
Okay, optional it is.
Okay, moving on to the next one. This one comes from Simon Willison weblog, and there was a recent AI Engineers Word Fair where he presented his insights on the last 6 months in LLMs, illustrated by pelicans on bicycles.
Yes.
A+ for novelty.
Paul, do you want to introduce this one?
No, I haven't read this one. I didn't get a chance to read it.
Yeah. So this is an article, actually very interesting. He essentially says, look, I don't quite trust all these various evaluation metrics, and I create my own. And this is to draw a bicycle and then the pelican on the bicycle. And he goes over all of these models that they came, Nova, Gemini 2.5, Claude, but in succession when they hit the market, and asks them to draw the same thing, right? And the best one actually, and then he had 30 of them all together, and he asked the LLM to identify what's the best one. And the best one, I forget. Adam, do you remember which one was the best one?
I think it was Gemini 2.5.
2.5, right. Yeah. And maybe Ankash, you can show it at the end. So that was the best one. You can see the real pelican, because the worst one was just a couple of lines on the page. So, but it is a real evolution. And
yeah, it was there, Ankash, just up. It was 2.5 Pro. You just passed it. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one. So it is a fascinating, in 6 months, so much development has happened. This is an interesting evaluation, obviously, and everybody can come up with their own. And it depends, obviously, on the model. But it's just a good reflection on the speed and the capabilities of the models as they improve. I thought it was optional. It's a fun piece, but optional for me. What did you think about this, Paul?
Yeah, and it's consistent. What we're saying is, don't trust the benchmarks. Get your own use case. Benchmark yourself. I think the thing that it does show, obviously, is that the the progress over time. It doesn't show any kind of one model modifying the prompt to get that particular model to work better here. So interesting, but novel and definitely optional.
John, going optional here. What did you think?
Yeah, totally comfortable with optional. I mean, I think it's. I was hoping for more from this presentation in the sense of, I agree. Trying to encapsulate what happened with the models. Over the past 6 months. Well, he first signed up for a year and then went to 6 months is a hard task. But the thing is that I think that there's. Well, this is an engineer talking to an engineering crowd, so I guess it's fine. But the thing that I keep wanting to see more of, and this is from everyone, including our friend Ethan Mollick and whomever, is really an understanding of just how this coevolution of intelligence and commerce is really fundamentally changing work, and we're already seeing the impacts and so forth. So that's the thing that I don't know. Maybe I'm asking too much of an engineering crowd, but there's he doesn't talk about what it does to suffer productivity. It doesn't talk about this struck me as a kind of lazy thing. I mean, if I'm doing a whole bunch of engineers, I would be talking something about what they do and what their economics are. But that's me.
Yeah, and John, you could imagine if this was Goldman Sachs doing this for creating an S1, and sophisticating and having Rubik to grade it or something. But
just he was talking to a group of engineers. It's okay. Well, let's talk about how engineering is changing. Because software engineering is the most impacted. Anyway,
Yeah,
clever but fluffy, not stuffy.
Yeah, Lucinda is talking about how important it is to use an LLM for your particular, find an LLM that fits your particular case, which is absolutely important. And that begs this question, but doesn't point it out at all. So this kind of lost in here.
Anyway.
Okay, going optional. Everybody okay? Yeah. All right, optional it is. Let's proceed. Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from AWS, and it's a case study in terms of how climate tech startups are building foundation models with Amazon's SageMaker Hyperpod.
Yes, a very somewhat in-depth article about various groups building these applications, but it's somewhat of a puff piece about Amazon. What did you think about this, John?
Yeah, that was exactly, you put it perfectly, Luda. I thought that some of these things are very interesting, but then the most interesting factoid in this whole thing that I found was the thing about how they were able to increase the absorptive rate of these carbon scrubbers by an order of magnitude, which is fantastic outcome. But then he went off of that, and it's just so in your face about Amazon Web Services and Amazon this and Amazon that. So I was going to give it an optional. They're very interesting here. You've got orbital materials. You have the ability to support these climate tech startups. I think it's interesting. Of course, it completely ducks the fact that the AI is increasing the carbon load and all that other stuff. So forget all that. So to me, it was. It went from insight to pure promotional, even though there's one or two good factoids in here. So I was going to give it an optional.
Optional from John. Adam, what did you think?
Yeah, agreed. I think there would actually be a good opportunity to tell a very interesting story around what they've built here in a way that could probably make it a very important piece in terms of the significance of this kind of engineering. But at this level, it's not even like telling a use case anymore, unfortunately. Yeah. It was just getting too much into exactly what they built, and it's kind of an engineering piece. So I'd agree optional.
Yeah, and Adam, I agree. And my expectation going into AWS case studies is always so high now. And the last 3 or 4, and this one in particular, is just absolutely missed.
And we might need to start thinking about, is it the folks at SageMaker, or is it the ones in Bedrock that are writing about their product?
No, that's true. Yeah,
because there might be some very different teams working on these things.
Yeah. Right. But what I found absolutely, if this is for people who are in the space of climate apps or climate research, this was fascinating of how much has been achieved in materials, in models to support these developments. It was stunning, actually. So in that sense, it's actually a valuable article, but optional for me as well. Okay, going optional. Ankash, okay with that?
Yes, Luda.
Okay, sounds good. Let's proceed then.
Okay, the next one comes from TechCrunch and talks about how Eleuthер AI has released massive AI training dataset of licensed and open domain text.
Yeah, this is a massive effort, and they released two models based on that set, comma V1, 1T and 2T, and claim that the performance of these models is similar to the ones that are out there, ChatGPT and the OpenAI and the like. So, but I don't know whether this would make that much of a difference, I thought. So I rated that as optional. I'm obviously open to people saying it's important. What do you think about this, Paul? You're on mute.
Yeah, I agree. Optional.
Okay. Optional, Adam?
Yeah, agreed. Cool story. 8 terabytes of public data. It's great. I don't know what an AI leader would do with this.
Yeah.
I think yeah, I'm going to give it optional too, but I think it's really sad we don't have more of this conversation. I mean, here we have these, tech companies that have basically strip mined, all of current online culture, and they're not paying for it. They're benefiting from it. It's really pretty astounding, and there's no notion of what the public good is here.
Well said, John.
Yeah.
There's no Boston Commons here.
The company though released early on, a number of years ago, right? They released a data set that unfortunately had data that was not licensed, and then they got in trouble for it. So in some sense, they are putting this set together to reimburse for that prior oops, right? But yeah, it's kind of too late almost. All right.
I didn't realize that this same company had screwed up, huh? I didn't know that.
The same company screwed up.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, I'm all for being Catholic. I'm all for penance. So there you go.
Okay, optional it is. Let's proceed, Ankash.
Okay, the last one that we have for today comes from McKinsey, and it talks about overcoming 2 issues that are sinking Gen AI programs.
Well, this is, McKinsey is in some sense stepping back and looking at the situations in 200 plus companies and seeing that it's the adoption is not progressing as everybody would have liked. And this is their reflection on that. What did you think about this, Adam?
Boy, if I were a Gen AI leader looking at that chart, I would just be opening my wallet and throwing money at McKinsey because I have no idea what's going on there. And obviously I need them to make sense of it for me, right? I mean, sorry, but that's mostly what this piece felt like to me. I actually gave it to GPT-4o, which I think did a fairly accurate job. I won't read it all, but I'll quote a few highlights here. It said a thinly veiled pitch for their consulting services dressed up as a thought leadership article. There was superficial framing of innovation failure. They talk about the generic culprits of process constraint, lack of focus and compliance overhead. But every tech leader already knows this. It offers no insights into why these persist or how to truly solve them beyond conveniently centralizing your strategy, i.e. hiring McKinsey to do it. They talk about platform talk is really just vendor lock-in in disguise. Automated guardrails is really buzzword compliance theater. It's performative, and it's true enterprises need automated guardrails, but automating them is not a turnkey fix. It's not going to solve the problems. And I mean, it goes on. It was actually a pretty good summary, but I would steer our leaders away from it.
Adam, I absolutely love that. We should have an ongoing critique of every McKinsey, Bain, BCG article. To me, I was shocked by this. This is not what we hear from companies at all. Change management, change management, change management, change management is the number one thing I hear on things not being adopted here. So I was shocked that they claimed that they did in-depth. Well, let me say it differently. Their in-depth analysis of 200 companies is very different than what we're hearing anecdotally from companies.
Yeah. And it is, their message is centralized. And you're right. If you look at this chart, I would cringe, right? It's really, bizarre. Okay, so going optional. Everybody okay with that? Sounds like, including the bot. Which one did you use, Adam?
Oh, I just put it in GPT-4o.
GPT-4o. That's a very good critique. All right.
I'm just glad that GPT-4o is channeling my point of view.
It felt like John was talking to me. It was really wild.
No, Adam. Next time you get it, put in a lot more snark.
Oh yeah, John, I didn't give you the floor. Yeah, you
know. Nothing to add. We're good.
Nothing to add. We're good. Okay, optional it is. All right. As Ankash is preparing our scorecard, any announcements?
Tonight's Learning Lab is going to be a continued discussion on the SEO bloodbath. We've got Rosemary Briscoe from To The Web and Mike from Revere, both companies. One's a vendor, one's a services firm. It's doing a lot of work with clients in that. So marketing departments now have realized that the economy is moving from search engines to answer engines, and it has profound implications on product discovery and lead gen. So join us at 7:00 Eastern. You can sign up via Meetup.
Yeah, I just want to point out the numbers underneath this. We're talking about $600 to $700 billion in non-linear advertising. That is all the stuff that basically funds the internet is now going to be available. Is now going to start getting funneled through these answer engines. So this is profound.
And John, explain what non-linear is for all us.
So it's basically online advertising. So it's not sponsoring the PGA would be considered linear advertising, right? You're going along or sitting inside a show in a traditional sense. This is on-demand digital advertising by and large.
Yeah. And Luda, I just want to call out all the online contributions from Kevin and Vivek and Ram and others. So really appreciate that. And thanks for adding comments, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for commenting and agreeing and disagreeing. This is really very helpful. Great. We have a scorecard here, and we almost made it a no-hit today. We have one important and the rest are optional, but it's Monday, so it's kind of what to be expected. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. Okay, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for contributing. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.